new names are being mentioned in the connection between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. This is nothing new, and this is, of course, nothing shocking. John Phelan, I'll play a video from MS Now from Rachel Maddow. You can hear from herself. John Phelan, appointed by Trump as Secretary of the Navy despite no military experience. But he has one thing, that is that he had good connection with Jeffrey Epstein. He is an art collector known for his celebration, quote unquote, celebration of the sexual side of life, and quote, art and a mirrored floor in his Aspen mansion. Take a listen.
A number of art world publications eventually sort of settled on what I guess is a representative quote, an existing quote from a former executive at Sotheby's describing the art tastes of Trump's new Navy secretary. She described his tastes as, quote, a celebration of the sexual side of life. The publication ArtNet published photos of some of his collection in situ at one of his homes, photos that I cannot show you on TV. Other art world publications described, for example, a video art installation at one of his homes, which is just all Playboy centerfolds. There's also, famously, the floor at his $38 million mansion in Aspen, Colorado. In an interview with the artnewspaper.com, Trump's Navy Secretary, John Phelan, his wife, was asked by that publication, quote, what is the most surprising place you have displayed a work? And she answered, quote, in the living room of our Aspen home. We have a mirrored floor. It covers the entire space. It is amazing to see people's reactions at parties when they realize what you can see in the floor. Naughty and nice, end quote. That Aspen home with the mirrored floor, that is where John Phelan hosted a gazillion-dollar fundraiser for candidate Donald Trump in August 2024. That fundraiser made news because it was one of the times Trump stated his made-up claim that prisons in the Congo were releasing all their murderers in order to ship them to the United States. He told that tall tale at the house with the, quote, naughty, surprise mirrored floor, whose owner Trump soon named to run the United States Navy, despite him having no connection to the Navy at all. Incidentally, that Aspen fundraiser was one that Trump flew to on an airplane that had previously belonged to Jeffrey Epstein, which itself made some headlines at the time. The campaign said at the time that that was just a coincidence. But, in the course of time, Trump got reelected to the presidency in November of 2024. He really did name this guy, John Phelan, the rando sexual side of life art collector with a mirrored floor, to run the United States Navy. And Congress really did force Trump's Justice Department to release at least some of the government's files on Trump's friend, the late convicted pedophile and child sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein. And, perhaps inevitably, among the revelations in the Epstein files was this headline: John Phelan, Trump's Navy secretary, listed in Epstein flight logs. John Phelan, the billionaire art collector whom President Donald Trump appointed to oversee the U.S. Navy, appears to have traveled on at least 2 transatlantic flights with Jeffrey Epstein. The flight manifests list Epstein, Phelan, and a handful of other men, including Jean-Luc Brunel, a French model scout who was accused of rape during the 1990s and later of providing girls to Jeffrey Epstein. Brunel was found dead in his jail cell in France in 2022 after being charged in a related case. Authorities ruled it death by suicide. Epstein's aircraft was nicknamed the, quote, Lolita Express, because, as some of Epstein's accusers have said, he frequently had young women and girls aboard the plane to entertain his guests.
Unbelievable. Lolita Express. This name was actually also seen on one of those photos that was published before, not this 3 million files of Epstein files, but before. It was clearly mentioned, the name was clearly mentioned on a young girl. I believe it was on her arm, Lolita Express or Lolita something like that, to that extent. Guys, the point here is that these people who worked and supported and are still supporting Donald Trump, a lot of them are from that Epstein files. And what Donald Trump calls it, Democrat hoax. Really? Really? You yourself and your people were directly involved in this sex trafficking. But guess what? People are not getting held accountable.
CNN was first to report on Navy Secretary John Phelan's flights with Jeffrey Epstein. They also published this flight log from the Epstein files, where you can see the Navy Secretary's name listed there. He's number 9 on the flight manifest. Nobody has claimed there were definitely any young women on board this plane, or girls on board this plane, but we don't know who the other 6 people are whose names are redacted from this flight manifest.
Absolutely. Now, just want to make mention of this. Jamie Raskin, congressman, expresses frustration over redactions in the Epstein files by the Trump Justice Department, noting that Donald Trump's name is mentioned thousands of times in the unredacted portions. Raskin also mentioned references to several underage girls, some as young as 9 years old. And you call it a Democrat hoax, and you want people to move on from this. No, we are not moving on.
For a reason. Why were those people having their names redacted? MS now contacted the U.S. Navy about John Phelan's connections to Jeffrey Epstein and Phelan's time on board Epstein's plane. The Navy is offering no comment. But today was the first day that members of Congress were allowed, under very strict conditions, to physically go to the Justice Department, where they were allowed to see unredacted versions of some Epstein documents. Judging by the reaction from members of Congress like Jamie Raskin, who took advantage of this opportunity today, members of Congress today seem just as frustrated as ever about what the Trump administration is doing and continues to do with all this Epstein-related material.
Okay, so now how many people we can directly connect with Jeffrey Epstein, who still has very, very good relationship and very good connection and networking with Donald Trump? I can name right off the bat 3 people. Number 1 is Elon Musk. Number 1 is this guy Phelan. And number 3 is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary of Donald Trump. And you are telling me Trump had nothing to do with all of this? I'm not that stupid.
There were to be no redactions in order to spare people embarrassment or political disgrace. We didn't want there to be a cover-up, and yet what I saw today was that there were lots of examples of people's names being redacted when they were not victims. And so we still haven't gotten from the DOJ their privilege log explaining why certain redactions were made, but I can tell you that I saw a whole bunch of them that seemed very suspicious and baffling to me. Donald Trump's name was redacted in a number of different places, and I saw one conversation between Epstein lawyers and Trump lawyers relating to the 2009 investigation, which had been redacted, and I don't see any particular reason that it should have been. Donald Trump's name is all over these files, all over it. I mean, thousands and thousands of times.
One thing that came out in the release last month was a bunch of tips from through the tip line, including about President Trump and potentially with a 13-year-old girl. Did you get to see any of how those tips were investigated? Did you feel comfortable about them being dismissed?
I saw nothing about that. But if you spend any real time with these files, you will see references to 17-year-old girls, 16-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, 11-year-old girls, 10-year-old girls, and I saw a reference today to a 9-year-old girl. So there's a really gruesome and grim story. And I think in order to see our way through this and to try to make progress on criminal investigation and prosecution and some kind of social redemption from this whole nightmare, we need to listen to the survivors.
Unbelievable. And do you know what else was mentioned by MS Now's Rachel Maddow? She also mentioned Brad Karp, chairman of the law firm Paul Weiss, who appeased Trump's threats by pledging $40 million in free legal services to Trump's projects. Unbelievable things are happening, but this is definitely a bombshell. And more to come. Subscribe for that. See you in the next one.